It's often reported in the press that EVs are very inefficient in cold weather. Well, they are less efficient than when the weather is warmer. There's no doubt about that. But that's the same with an ICE vehicle as well. So the whole point of this test is to see by how much the efficiency drops by. Now, a few months ago we did this test on a 49-mile circuit when the temperature was around about 17 degrees Celsius. Today the temperature is 4 degrees Celsius, which is about 39 or 40 degrees Fahrenheit. 17 degrees Celsius is around 64 degrees Fahrenheit. So a fair temperature difference from the summer to the autumn. So in terms of the conditions of the road are very similar in that it's dry weather, there's not that much wind. In terms of the cabin temperature, we're going to set that at 22 degrees Celsius as we did before, and we're going to drive at a maximum of 55 miles an hour. Prior to that, we're going to stick to the speed limits. So let's get on with the test. So here is the temperature. As you can see, it's 4 degrees Celsius. Now we're going to convert that into Fahrenheit for you, for those who quite don't understand Celsius, which is very few, I would imagine. So 39 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius. And in terms of the trip meter, what we will do is we will create a new trip for this. So what we will do is we will reset the trip and rename one low temperature test. And in terms of the temperature and in terms of the tire pressures, I'll show you those as we drive along. So this is a route, 24.5 miles. We are where the red triangle is. We'll travel west and then we'll go over the Queensferry crossing and up to Kinross services. And so that's a route for the day, and that's the route back again. And once we get to Kinross, we'll have a look at the figures, see where we are, and then when we come back home, we will obviously assess the figures and see what the difference in efficiency was compared to the last test. Now, from the front binnacle, you can see on the right hand side there are some dots on that display. Now that shows you that the battery hasn't quite warmed up yet. And so that gives you a bit more realism to the test, in the sense that when you start your car in the morning, your battery is not going to be warm, it's going to be cold. So this is really a cold battery to start with, and it'll take several miles for it to warm up, to get up to temperature. And once it does, I'll let you know at what distance that actually warmed up at. Now, heading out of Edinburgh, the traffic is still quite busy, so we're not really achieving any kind of great speed. Average speed is about 30 miles an hour so far, but once we cross over this junction here, which is called the Barnton Junction, hopefully we'll be able to speed up a bit more. Now, I did say that the roads were quite dry, but as you can see, they are still a bit damp. Whether that has an effect on the efficiency or not, I really don't know. I think it does have a little bit of an efficiency disadvantage, but by how much, I think it's very difficult to measure that. Now we're 6 miles into our journey, and we've achieved our speed that we're looking for, which is 55 miles an hour now. But the battery is still cold, so a certain amount of energy will be used to heat up the battery as well. So that does go against it. So if, for instance, you had a preheated car, or a preconditioned car rather, the efficiency would definitely increase. So as I said, we're heading towards the Queensferry crossing. We'll get there in a few minutes, and once we cross over, we're only about another, I think it's about 17 or 18 miles to go after that. So here we are on the Queensferry crossing, just entering that. Now the speed limit on the Queensferry crossing is actually 70 miles an hour, but as you can see, the traffic is quite slow. We're still doing 55 miles an hour, we're not holding anybody back. Now, for those who don't know, Queensferry crossing was opened around 2017, I think, because the Forth Road Bridge next door was falling apart to a certain degree. So the Queensferry crossing opened in 2017, but in my view, they've missed a few things here. They've not put in a cycle path, or they've not put in a pedestrian footpath as it was on the Forth Road Bridge, which is unfortunate. So you can't actually walk across this bridge, you can't cycle across this bridge. The only way you can get across is by car, which I think is a step backwards, but as I said, we are where we are. So not long to go now. We've travelled 8 miles, so we have another another 20 miles to go, I think. I was wrong earlier on when I said 17 miles, so another 20 miles to go before we get to the Kinross crossing, before we get to the Kinross services rather. But I should have mentioned that there are actually 3 bridges crossing the Forth at this point. There's the Forth Rail Bridge, which was built at the latter half of the 19th century. Then there was the Forth Road Bridge, which was built, opened in the early 1960s, I believe. And finally, obviously, the Queensferry crossing. I'll put a picture up in the corner here so you can see all 3 of them. And it's quite a sight. You can get some good views from South Queensferry if you're ever visiting down there. Now, in order not to make this test too biased, what we're doing is we're overtaking this truck on the left hand side. We're just slightly increasing our speed to overtake it. Otherwise, if we're caught if we drive behind it, that can make the car seem more efficient than it actually is. So we don't want to be driving behind a truck, because that will obviously increase the efficiency. So that's why we're overtaking this. Just for a small period, we're going to exceed our 55 mile an hour limit, and then we'll set back down to it again once we've overtaken it. So we're 14 miles into our journey, so another 10 miles to go, and the temperature is still 4 degrees Celsius, and as I said, the air conditioning is set at 22 as it was last time. So everything's fairly steady. If the traffic clears up a bit, as in if it gets a bit quieter, I'll show you how the autopilot works, because that's quite a main feature on this on the Tesla. What you find is that on all Teslas, no matter which one you buy new, the autopilot will come as standard. And some people think that this is just a gimmick, but it's not. What the autopilot does is that it calculates the distance from yourself and the car ahead, and it keeps that distance ahead, keeps the distance equal, and it also keeps the car in the center of the lane, and it does it remarkably well. And also, when you're overtaking, all you have to do is touch the indicator stop once, and it will check whether there is a car approaching, and if there isn't, it will overtake the car. It will change lanes rather. So it's a very effective system. A lot of companies have it nowadays, there's no doubt about that. But with the autopilot system, the road does not have to be mapped ahead, as it is with some car manufacturers such as GM and I think Ford as well. So this you can drive on any unmapped road, which is a great advantage. So I'll just show you how it works in a moment. So the reason it's so important to use the same road there and back is, as you can see now, we're on a downhill gradient, and so if we don't use the same road back, it'll give a distinct advantage, or it'll give you a false reading in terms of, it'll show you the car is more efficient than it actually is. But since we're going to be driving back up this road, that will equal things out. So here's the ideal opportunity to show you how the autopilot works. To change lane, all you have to do is touch the stalk once, and the car will move over to the outside lane. And if you want to move back in again, all you do, you touch the stalk once, and the car will move back again. Now in North America, or I think in North America, as in US and Canada, the rules are slightly different in the sense that the car will do this by itself. You don't actually have to touch the indicator stalks. But in the UK, they have taken that feature off because the UK government doesn't agree with it at the moment. But there are 3 versions of autopilot at the moment. There's a standard version that you get on the car, where it will not change lanes by itself, in the sense that it will only steer and keep the distance ahead from the car itself. And then there is what we have in this car, which is called enhanced autopilot. And what you get with that package is that it will parallel park, it will bay park, and also it will change lanes by touching the stalk once, and it will also do summon as well. And then there is the full self-driving package, which is only available in the United States, not even in Canada. And what that does is that effectively you can just enter a point on your satellite navigation, and the car will effectively take you there through city streets as well, and through highways. And now eventually that's the dream. The dream is that will come to all parts of the world eventually, but at the moment it's only active in the United States. But even then, it's not perfect. There are a certain number of interventions that drivers have to take along the way, depending on the route. But as I said, through time, that is what the target is. Now, I myself have used autopilot several times when I'm traveling, and it has actually saved me from serious injury. Now, there was a time when I actually got a bit drowsy, and if the autopilot was not on, I would have probably ended up in the crash barrier. So it's a system that I endorse fully. If you haven't tried it, you certainly should try it, and I think you'd be hard pressed not to be impressed by it. And if you haven't bought it for your Tesla, if you only do city driving in the UK, then perhaps it's not worth buying. But if you're doing long distance driving, it definitely does help. It just takes the fatigue out of driving, because effectively you are a passenger in your own car. I mean, you do have to concentrate, but a lot less, and the heavy lifting is done by the software. So we're approaching our exit, just 1 mile to the Kinross services, and we'll be there shortly.
Now take exit 6 on the left.
Here we are entering Kinross services. So we've parked up at Kinross services. Just to make things a bit quieter, I'm going to switch off the air conditioning so it makes it a bit easier for you to hear me. So we have travelled 24 miles, it's actually 24.5 miles, and used 9 kilowatt hours of energy at a rate of 374 watt hours per mile. Now, 374 watt hours per mile doesn't mean an awful lot to most people, so to convert that into kilowatt hours used, or rather miles travelled per kilowatt hour, it's a very simple calculation. It's just 1,000 divided by 374, or 24 divided by 9. So it's very straightforward, and that gives us an answer of 2.67 miles travelled per kilowatt hour. Now, at this stage, when the temperature was around 17 degrees Celsius, I think we were about 3.5 miles travelled per kilowatt hour. Now the temperature's dropped even further to 3 degrees Celsius, which is 37 degrees Fahrenheit. So it shows you a considerable difference. So the thing is, we'll head back home to Edinburgh now, and once we've done the full journey, we'll go over the final figures. But before then, let's have a look at those new superchargers. So these are installed by a company called GridServe. They're quite large in the UK, but I think these superchargers are pay as you go, as far as I'm aware. You don't need a membership, but let's see how these work. So all you do is you plug in your vehicle, use your card, contactless, phone or card, and then that's it. Simple and straightforward. And it is a CCS type adapter, and that's a payment card at the bottom. So very similar to the new version 4 Tesla superchargers. And these are, as I said, in a fair number of places around the UK. And the advantage of these ones is that they have a longer cable, so you can stretch it all the way around to the back of the car if that's where your port is. But I think these ones are up to 150 kilowatt hours. 150 kilowatt chargers, these ones. So that'll be quite a good addition to the service station here. But one thing I did notice is the cost of the electricity. Now, if you were at a Tesla supercharger, the electricity would cost you around 45 pence a kilowatt hour. This company is charging 79 pence a kilowatt hour, so quite a difference in cost. So that's us off to Edinburgh now. It should take us about 30 minutes to get there, I think. And once we get there, as I said earlier on, we'll go through the final figures and look at the efficiency rating, as in during the warmer temperature and today's temperature, which has now fallen again to 3 degrees Celsius. So we're approaching the Queensferry crossing once again. That means we are just 10 miles away from our final destination, and once we get there we'll be looking at the figures and a final summary. Back from our starting point, as you can see, we travelled 49 miles using 16 kilowatt hours of energy, average consumption of 339 watt hours per mile. So what is that equivalent to? So that's the equivalent of 2.95 miles travelled per kilowatt hour. Now, so 2.95 miles compared to 3.77 in the summer. And so that's a drop of 22%. Now, in the summer the temperature was 17 degrees Celsius. Now you might find that strange, 17 degrees Celsius in the summer, but that's as warm as it gets here pretty much, unfortunately. So 3.77 miles travelled in the summer and 2.95 miles travelled in the winter on 1 kilowatt hour of energy. So as I said, a drop of 22%, and so that's quite a considerable drop, 22%. I'm not sure what the equivalent combustion engine car would drop in efficiency. That's something that perhaps someone can educate me on, but we will try that test as well in due course. So that's the end of this video. Please like and subscribe and share if you've learnt anything new, and I'll catch you in the next one.